How to spot a crypto-fascist. So, despite what the videos that I am rebutting have said, typically the reason I make these videos where I point out somebody's flaws, something they get wrong, whatever, I feel like the greater community needs to know those things. In my head, part of my audience is me in the past. What are the things that I wish I knew? And that's honestly the motivation for a lot of my videos. In this case, we will be pointing out the myriad of things that both Historical Heathen get wrong in his rebuttal, as well as pointing out the small little things that most people will not notice simply because you have not done the leftist deconstruction, or maybe you're just not deep enough into that deconstruction. And even if you're not a leftist, it is still very important for heathens to deconstruct. We still exist in the larger Christian hegemony that is driven by certain factors like capitalism and other forms of exploitation. So a couple things before we get started. One is you will notice the Molon Labe tattoo across Historical Heathen's chest. This is a reference to Sparta. Supposedly, Leonidas said, "Come and take them," when Xerxes asked for him to lay down his arms. And this has become kind of a bit of a dog whistle for the right wing. Of course, it is extremely ahistorical to aggrandize the Spartans as a symbol of freedom. I personally am pro-gun. There's actually a quote by Marx, believe it or not, advocating for the working class to be able to arm themselves, and I would also extend that to other marginalized peoples like the LGBTQ, people of color, and other people that do not necessarily have the privilege of being able to call law enforcement. If you haven't guessed, I actually do armed security for a living. I am not a gun guy, but I do believe that being able to defend yourself is very important. However, it is ahistorical to use the Spartans as any kind of symbol of freedom. They actually had a slave economy. They didn't believe in money. Money was iron for them. And because of that, they ran almost entirely on captured peoples. Slaves outnumbered the free people by a lot. I don't know the exact margin, but it is a huge right-wing misnomer that literally just came out of the movie 300 and has no historical source whatsoever. That is your first dog whistle. The second thing, if you look at his chest, you'll notice this circle of stars. These are the stars on the original American flag. He is a 3%er. This is actually a group that has been classified as a terrorist group.
So to all you wonderful people who voted for Joe Biden, why don't you kindly go fuck yourselves, goddamn retards. Orange Man bad. Orange Man racist. He's not. He was a Democrat for like 40 years. And you guys are just so offended by everything that you're willing to destroy a country. Oh, we need to have sustainable energy. Wouldn't that be nice if the technology was there? But no, let's go do some iridium mining and just tear the world up some more. Let's try to push technology that doesn't exist. All because of a mean fucking tweet. Go fuck yourselves. I hope you lose your fucking house.
I get that. I've heard that excuse 100 times. You don't speak the language. You didn't grow up in the culture. You don't actually have a degree.
Here he stops himself before he says degree. I've addressed this in multiple videos before. Had he done an inkling of research, he would know that. I also addressed it in my recent What Makes the Gothar video. If people ask, of course I elaborate. The reason I call myself Gothi is 1, because it's an alliteration. 2, because it lets people know my position and my kindred. And 3, when I was looking for channels, I looked up Gothi. I do not claim to have a position of authority outside of my kindred. And for that matter, within my kindred, I try to keep things as egalitarian as possible. I do not have power over anybody, just like I do on other platforms like r/Norse paganism. I try to foster an open environment free of dogma, free of people telling you how and what to believe, outside of course, basic human decency of treating marginalized peoples with respect, and anti-racism, which for heathens is extremely important, because how else are we going to get the nassholes out? As for the language thing, 1, if you look at the over 160 videos on my YouTube channel, you will notice there are many videos I do where I do go into language, where I do look at that. I may not speak the language, but I do understand terms. I have videos on terms that are important to heathenry. It is not a requirement in heathenry to speak the language. Culture and language are intertwined, but that's not a requirement. If it was, I don't think there'd be a lot of heathens around. That is just another form of gatekeeping, and honestly, he's really just grasping for straws at this point. And as we'll see, there is a trend of him just being very, very bad at research.
Any measurable knowledge of this stuff other than arguing with like well discussed and well accepted topics by calling out like scholarly basis from 1,000 years.
So again, most of my videos are not calling people out. Most of my videos are explaining things, my internet history, my reputation. People know who I am. People know I know what I'm talking about. I have a long history on Reddit, not to mention in real life, of course, as well as my YouTube channel with, again, over 160 videos, many of which do have tons of cited sources. They're way too long for me to ever put on TikTok. And what's this thing where he keeps talking about over 1,000 years of research? Archaeology as a science is not actually that new. Until the Enlightenment era, we didn't even look at things like that the way we do now. That alone is an ahistorical perception of how things work.
So you're a fraud, is what you are. I have my clergy's license too, and on it says Govi, but I don't ever use that title because I'm not an arrogant prick.
The evidence disagrees, sir.
Yeah, I unblocked you because sometimes I just need a break from you, dude, because the lies that are coming out of your mouth are truly heinous.
He calls them lies, yet I have pointed out not only his opinion, I gave his full opinion in my video, but also I showed the comments, specifically the one where he liked and agreed with somebody calling trans people mentally ill. That shows who you are, man. You're not hiding who you are.
Calling me a bigot and stuff when I'm just stating a historical fact and you're gaslighting people saying, no, you're just being a bigot.
As far as I know, I've read, I've heard, J.K. Rowling has never said once that she is anti-trans. She is posited that she believes in the science of biology, therefore the main genders of male and female, and in the middle, or the other category of different types of having both sexual, male and female sexual organs. There's no hate in that. It's just science. It's just cold hard science. Sorry. The same way I believe.
I literally showed your bigotry, man. You cannot deny what people have seen. You can say that you're not a bigot. The facts disagree.
And you don't like that. And since, you know, you got some problems upstairs, you just like hammering it.
Ad hominem. Rather than speaking to the argument, he is attacking my character. Now he is accusing me of mental illness.
No matter how much I argue with you, it's just not going to help because you don't have the mental capabilities to understand what I'm saying. So, yeah, I'll keep you unblocked, and it's just to refute your bullshit coming out of your mouth.
Okay, then where's the refutation? Where is you going through my argument and pointing out, no, this is wrong because of this? It's not there. Instead, you just post an ad hominem video that literally touches on none of my actual arguments.
That's the reason. I know you're never going to see eye to eye with me, and I know you're always going to, use the communist playbook.
There's another dog whistle. Fascists love to use communist as an insult. I don't see anything wrong with being communally minded, having compassionate legislation, treating everybody as an equal. There are tons of varying philosophies behind communism, not just like the Soviet idea, the Marxist-Leninist philosophy that people are familiar with. Simply to use communist as an insult is absolutely another fascist dog whistle.
Calling me a bigot and stuff, which in real life would, you need to go see a dentist afterwards.
And then he ends this video with the most cowardly threat that circumvents TikTok's community guidelines. First off, no, I'm not afraid of you. I take pride in my ability to de-escalate. The fact that I have not had to pull any weapons off of my belt in my job. However, I have yet to be bested, first off. This is another thing that fascists do regarding leftists. They think we're weak. They think that we can't defend ourselves. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I have over 20 years of martial arts experience, and I've been doing licensed security 8 years next month. Licensed in 2 different states. 1, I'm not scared. And 2, why end this video on a violent take? Another thing about fascists is they believe in might makes right. They believe that force gives you a right over another person. Again, it's just apparent in the way you're talking. Also, it looks like you just woke up and then decided to make a rebuttal. I don't know, think about it for a second. You're showing your whole ass on Al Gore's internet, you know what I mean?
Since you're on the internet, you feel confident enough to yell that shit with your whole chest. Well, buddy, you're gonna run into that guy one day, and motherfucker, I hope I'm there for it. So basing one's reconstruction via the linguistic and archaeological evidence is historical fact.
But as I've pointed out in 2 videos so far, this being the 3rd, you don't do that. You don't even understand the scientific process behind fact accumulation, nor do you understand that we're in a new age and sometimes things need to be thrown out, like Ergi, which I mentioned in that video.
And using the top scholars in their fields like Michael Barnes, Neil Price, Ursula Drunker, all who taught this stuff.
One of the scholars he mentions, Neil Price, actually put forth the argument there may have been transmask Vikings. Dude, you're not even looking at your own sources.
I don't mess around with scholars positing theories.
Again, this shows that ahistorical ineptitude, where he just does not understand the scientific process. A theory is the highest status something can get within science. That is because something can always be disproven when there is new knowledge. That is what a theory is. The colloquial idea that a theory is just not something based in fact is wrong, and I pointed this out in my video. He's just not paying attention. People at large do not understand that. That's why we have people literally denying the theory of evolution, because they don't understand a theory is the highest attainable in science, and a theory can always be disproven with new information. Nothing is ever truly a hard fact. That is not a thing. Everything is subject to change with new facts. That is how the scientific process works. And he just ignores that, and a guy calling himself historical heathen should know better.
I go with well-known, highly esteemed scholars. It's the safest way to go because they have a general consensus on their peer reviews.
And in order for something to become a theory, it must be peer-reviewed.
I straight up promoted malignant speech? I don't think so. Unless you're going by this new age, little kid exaggerator metric, then yeah, I guess some of the things I can say are not very nice.
And that's more of that, like, hiding behind that right wing, but I didn't say the thing. No, we can read between the lines. When you use terms like transgenderism, and when you put down trans people, and when you're not actually having a discussion, you're just shouting. One of the things I mentioned in the comments is you have a reputation. People know who you are. People understand that you are there only to bark bullshit, because you just don't understand the things that you're saying, and that's because they're steeped in fascist ideology. The reason I called him a crypto-fascist is because it is hidden fascism. That's what crypto means. It means hidden.
I still find crypto-fascist to be funny. People throw these terms out without full weight and implication of them. But really, again, it's just out of the communist playbook.
Again, using communism as a pejorative, not understanding what crypto-fascist means. You and I both have the same Google machine in our pockets. Look it up before you make the video. He just keeps making these emotional retorts without actually thinking about it. I'm just saying, think for a little bit. And that's another thing. Fascism appeals to emotion. That's something people don't really understand. It's appealing to hero worship. It's appealing to an American mythology. And I'm saying that as somebody who's fought for this country. Part of deconstruction is understanding what fascism is, especially as heathens. How else are we gonna weed out the fascists from heathenry? It's not just people in the AFA or that have the hooked cross in their arm. Nassholes are fascists. Not all fascists are nassholes. And that's something else that people don't really understand.
If we're talking about problematic behavior, like your video with the Loki litmus test, you're talking about problematic behavior. I find it highly problematic that one, such as yourself, could go around telling people that they're bigoted or fascist because they don't believe what you believe.
The Loki litmus test has nothing to do with theology. This is again another assumption because he has not done research. If you look at my video history, I do videos that are anti-dogma. I do videos that are anti-hierarchy. I have for years. I consider myself a classical libertarian because I am a libertarian in the original leftist sense, before the right wing took the term. Most of the time that I've had my YouTube channel, I have said all pagans are valid as long as their beliefs don't cause harm. I am not trying to dictate theology. I am not saying you need to venerate Loki. I am simply saying that it is a sign that if you look at Loki, because he is seen as an outsider, in a negative light, it is a trend in thought process that when you see people as other, you also vilify them, which can extend to marginalized peoples.
Also that they're not real Norse pagans.
Again, something that I never said, but watch what he says next.
So I don't go around doing that. I go around and say, here's the deal. Norse paganism is this. Anything outside of that is just eclectic paganism.
So he literally goes around telling people they're not Norse pagans if they don't believe what he believes. How How does this guy not hear his own voice?
So worshiping and venerating Loki is a totally fine practice. And this is what the whole argument's about, right? Is people shouting down Loki. I'm not shouting down Loki.
Again, not part of the Loki litmus test, simply an assumption that he is making. Probably because he is hearing something from a third party and not directly from me.
I defend him in some instances, saying he is a part of the Asir. He's enumerated in Napnathulur.
Loki is a huge parable throughout the Eddas of a bad dude, of what not to do. Loki does a whole bunch of horrible shit. And usually every time he does something good, it's to get himself out of trouble. You'll notice in Lokasena, they talk down, they call him Erki for giving birth to Nari and Narfi and basically taking it up the ass.
I go on historical fact, just you have this slanted view of me because I disagree with you and your problematic ideology.
Okay, then highlight my argument and then make a rebuttal. He's not doing that at all. Instead, he is speaking from the hip and talking about somebody else's ideas about my ideas that probably went through 3 or 4 people before I got to him. Because again, he's really bad at research. Another, not necessarily fascist, but very conservative take is using problematic, since I used the term, as a pejorative. Again, you're just showing your hand, bud.
And it is problematic to dictate practice.
I agree, which is why I've made a ton of videos that are anti-dogma, which is why on r/Norse paganism that I've been modding for, I think like 4+ years maybe, I have always been anti-dogma, anti-dictating what something is. Even with my videos, I give people the tools to figure things out for themselves. I will state my opinion on how I got to things, but I never dictate practice. He's just so bad at research. You could have just looked through my YouTube or looked through the TikTok videos, but instead you just want to make this appeal to emotion. Another fallacy.
I also have a problem with you calling yourself Goldi.
We've already gone over this. He's just grasping at straws because he has nothing else to insult me with. And I'm not sure if it was him or not, but I'm pretty sure there's a historical heathen that came across r/Norse paganism maybe a year or so back. I don't know if it was him, but I remember having to ban that person because of the hyper-conservative fascist rhetoric they were using.
On Reddit, I see so much gender identity politics injected into this stuff, and gatekeeping, inadvertent gatekeeping. But the one thing is crazy is the woke left is doing the trans LGBTQ plus whatever pronoun nonsense, injecting that into a cultural tradition that is over 1,000 years old. And they're using these modern social political conventions to enhance or progress their agenda and not the actual cultural traditions.
Even without that, suspicious arguments, tons of fascist dog whistles, straight up threatening me, ad hominems everywhere. I mean, you know the internet's permanent, right? Just whole foot in mouth and calling it a victory.
And I'll tell you why, because I always do. You're not coming from a place of knowledge here. You don't speak the language, you don't understand the culture.
Again, over 160 videos and a reputation spanning at least 5 years on the internet. I've been heathen since 2006, so what is that, like 17 years?
And again, this is why I don't use the term. I have a little piece of paper that says it. Oh, just because I want it known that I'm not a clergy from Abrahamic religion.
Another appeal to emotion. I am the Gothi of my kindred. That doesn't make me a clergy in the Abrahamic sense. It sucks that in the United States, we use Christian, not Abrahamic specifically, standards to qualify for religion as well as a clergy, when a lot of religions don't fit that bill. But again, that's another appeal to emotion fallacy.
But I don't give myself that title online. But I do offer advice.
We know. Unsolicited advice. Since I have made my rebuttal videos, people have come forward and have told me that not only you will come to their lives or whatever they have going on in order to bark at them, but you also have other people that will come into their lives. And for that matter, you might have Gothi on a piece of paper, but are you the Gothi of a kindred? I don't know, because that is the thing that actually makes you a Gothi. Legally, you might be considered Gothi. However, the thing that makes you a Gothi is having a kindred, not a piece of paper.
I can perform wedding ceremonies, funerals, and stuff like that in the state of Minnesota. But that's just to give our people, I'm
not sure if he said our people in that way as like a folkish kind of dog whistle. It may have simply been because he is insinuating that I am telling people that they are not true Norse pagans when obviously I'm not. However, he has admitted that. So I don't know. It's like he just doesn't hear himself talk. It's the weirdest thing.
Because I think we should respect religious rights of every nature. Honestly, I think a little humility is needed. I mean, in my case too, you know, I need to be humbled now and then. I'll agree with that. I have a little bit of an ego.
So if you've watched my videos for some time, you'll notice that I have like a lot of little sayings and ditties. One of them is, I would rather be proven wrong than stay wrong. And since I was a very young child, and I didn't have the words at the time, but in order to see the world in the most objective state possible, you have to cultivate an unbiased mind. And that is something that I have done from a very young age. Not that I don't have biases, we will always have biases, they're natural. You can cultivate a mindset to at least alleviate yourself of certain biases. Like in the moment, it may be a knee-jerk reaction to want to make that appeal to emotion, but understanding why you are making that appeal to emotion can prevent it in the future. The funny thing with him making this argument is that he like caps this whole thing as though he didn't threaten me, as though he wasn't constantly making ad hominems, as though he didn't say a bunch of transphobic shit, and that I didn't call him out for it, but I simply made that up. When I showed his whole argument, the YouTube video, it's only sped up a little bit because there's less time restriction, but I showed your whole argument and I showed your comments after the fact. I showed that you were agreeing with other transphobes. And rather than fix yourself or have a discussion, you just want to make this appeal to emotion after blocking me and then unblocking me, but you never actually address the things that I said. Instead, you're trying to make this appeal to emotion in order to make me look bad. But I have a reputation already, man. You have a reputation for going in where you're not wanted and saying a bunch of crap that is unfounded. I have a reputation for making things clear and concise and for bettering myself over time. If you look at the beginning of my videos about 5 years ago, terrible quality, not that much cited sources. The point where it kind of changed for me is when I did my Did Berserkers Use Mushrooms video. Because I had to cite sources for that video, I then took it upon myself to start doing more research. And over time, my research has gotten better and better. As I'm recording this, I am currently editing a video on runes where I cite the rune poems, where I go over the language that you say I don't understand. I talk about cultural context, which again, you don't understand because you don't understand that cultural context of the time period is super important. As I stated it in the video calling out your transphobia, identity was different back then. And you don't understand that because you're not actually doing your own research. You're not even looking at the researchers that you cited. How can we take your word when you're doing such poor research and when you just don't understand the scientific process?
Admitting our own faults is kind of a big thing, and eating crow sometimes isn't so easy. Before you go pointing who's who and, you know, these ad hominem attacks and talking about problematic behavior, you should look at your own behavior, man.
The funny thing is, everything he tries stating about me is true of himself. There were no rebuttals in these two videos. It was all ad hominem attacks. It was all unfounded, uncited things. Show screenshots of stuff I've said. Show clips of stuff I've said. It's just an appeal to emotion. Again, that is just something that fascists tend to do. Because they are not trying to use facts and logic, they will try to look like they are using facts and logic. But in reality, they are only using that appeal to emotion, that appeal to toxic masculinity, that appeal to the dislike of others, right? That leads to hatred of immigrants, that leads to hatred of LGBTQ. The thing that makes them call consenting adults doing things in the privacy of their own home deviance. The thing that makes them worry about what other people get up to in their personal lives. Why worry about it? Why make multiple videos where you are just putting down trans people? I mean, you have a reputation. I'm not making this video because I feel like you are going to hurt mine. I am making this video because people need to have the tools to look out for this sort of thing. I hope that Historical Heathen improves himself and goes through the deconstruction. I really do. I hope that of all fascists, really. And I've caught flack over the years for giving some fascists patience and trying to change them because I have been on the far right in my life. I was very angry after I got back from my deployment in 2009. Because of that, I ran with a pretty rough crowd for a little bit. It taught me a lot of stuff, mostly what not to do and what to look out for within fascism. I changed. First I became libertarian and now I'm a classical libertarian on the left. that was a long process of me changing. I know that some fascists can change. Some far-right people can change. I know that people that have hate in their hearts are only punching down because the people they should be mad at, the people in power, are telling them to blame marginalized people because they have for centuries. They have before capitalism. Capitalism is only a culmination of a lot of really bad colonialist shit. These problems existed before capitalism, and I think leftists blame capitalism a little too much because there's obviously way more to it than that, but that's a subject for another video. This video was way longer than I intended, but that's because I want to give people the tools to look out for this kind of stuff. And with that being said, be better tomorrow than you were yesterday. We are the sum of our actions, not our words.
I am a folk heathen because I believe in the traditional culture.